which has requested comments on whether or not Zambia should ratify the agreement on fisheries subsidies under the World Trade Organization, WTO, and the ramifications thereof. To provide a background, Chair, the World Trade Organization is composed and governed by its member states, and makes decisions collectively, either through ministerial conferences held at least every 2 years or regular meetings of ambassadors in Geneva. Zambia has been a member of the WTO since its establishment in 1995 and has actively participated in its negotiations, including those under the Doha Development Agenda, or the DDA. One of the critical areas of focus under these negotiations has been the regulation of fisheries subsidies, which was formally introduced during the 4th WTO Ministerial Conference in Doha in 2001. At this conference, member states committed to developing rules to discipline harmful subsidies, particularly those contributing to overcapacity and overfishing, a commitment reaffirmed in 2005. The regulation of fisheries subsidies became increasingly urgent due to the growing unsustainability of global fish stocks. The wild fishing industry depends on the natural reproduction of marine resources, but decades of overfishing, driven by the economic attractiveness of the sector, have put intense pressure on fish populations. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, 33.1% of global fish stocks are currently overfished. In response, WTO members reached a landmark agreement on fisheries subsidies at the 12th Ministerial Conference held in 2022. This agreement is historically significant as it is the first WTO agreement to focus on environmental sustainability, the first multilateral agreement to fully meet a sustainable development goal of the United Nations target. For it to become operational, 2/3 of WTO members must ratify the agreement by depositing their instruments of acceptance. As of 8 April 2025, 96 member states have formally accepted the agreement by depositing instruments of acceptance. Chair, I would like to present salient features of the agreement. Article 1 of the agreement prohibits subsidies for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, which is called the IUU. Article 4 of the agreement prohibits subsidies for fishing or fishing-related activities regarding except where the subsidies are used as part of measures aimed at rebuilding the stock to a biologically sustainable level. Article 5 prohibits subsidies for fishing or fishing in unregulated high seas. Articles 6 and 7 provide for special and differential treatment for developing countries and least developed countries, LDCs. In Article 6, developing countries and LDCs are allowed a 2-year transition period for certain prohibitions. Article 7 encourages technical assistance and capacity building and establishes a voluntary WTO funding mechanism to support implementation in developing countries and LDCs. Article 8 imposes notification obligations on members, and members must notify the WTO of subsidy programs, vessels, and operators receiving subsidies, as well as the status of fish stocks and relevant conservation measures. Article 11 outlines exceptions and safeguards within the agreement, allowing subsidies for disaster relief under strict conditions and ensuring that the agreement does not interfere with territorial claims, maritime boundaries, or existing international law obligations. It also clarifies that members are not bound by decisions of regional fisheries bodies they do not belong to, and that the agreement does not override rights under the Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. I now present compliance with the Constitution and national policy. The agreement is not at variance with the Constitution of Zambia and does not contravene its provisions. Furthermore, it aligns with the Fisheries Act No. 22 of 2011. While the agreement governs fishing activities on the high seas, the Fisheries Act pertains specifically to inland waters. Despite this distinction, both legal instruments share common objectives, namely the promotion of sustainable fishing practices and the conservation of marine resources. Importantly, the formal acceptance of the agreement will not necessitate any legislative amendments on our part. From a policy perspective, the agreement is fully aligned with the National Fisheries and Aquaculture Policy. Both the policy and the agreement share common objectives, including the deterrence and elimination of IUU fishing. This alignment reinforces Zambia's commitment to responsible fisheries management and the sustainable use of aquatic resources. I now present ramifications of ratifying the agreement. The positive ramifications include: 1. To promote fair competition. The implementation of the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement will involve reducing subsidies to vessels or operators engaged in illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, as well as curbing subsidies related to overfished stocks, including those for fishing gear and related activities. This will help promote fair competition in the global fishing sector, from which Zambia also stands to benefit. By accepting the agreement, Zambia positions itself among nations committed to combating overfishing, an issue that contributes to environmental degradation and distorts global trade dynamics. Second, potential for increased trade. By contributing to the global effort to curb harmful subsidies, the agreement may create a more level playing field for trade in fish products. This could potentially benefit a landlocked country by making it easier to import or export fish-related goods, even without a direct fishing industry. Number 3, sustainable fisheries management. The agreement prohibits subsidies for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, as well as fishing on the unregulated high seas and overfished stocks. This can indirectly benefit a landlocked country like Zambia by contributing to the overall health of global fish stocks, which may impact the availability of fish-related products in its domestic market. Number 4, strengthen global trade reputation. Ratifying the agreement positions Zambia as a responsible and cooperative WTO member committed to sustainable trade practices. This can reaffirm Zambia's credibility in international trade negotiations, as well as attract trade and investment from countries and entities that prioritize sustainability and environmental governance. Number 5, promotion of sustainable inland fisheries. Though landlocked, Zambia has significant inland fisheries such as Lake Tanganyika, Lake Kariba and the Zambezi River. The agreement would therefore support policies to reduce overfishing and overcapacity in freshwater ecosystems, to encourage the use of better fishing practices and assist in preserving fish stocks and biodiversity for future generations. Number 6, access to technical and financial assistance. By accepting the agreement, Zambia gains access to capacity building and technical support through the WTO's implementation mechanism. This includes funding opportunities for sustainable fisheries management, which could significantly enhance the country's ability to monitor and manage its inland fisheries. Some of the negative ramifications include the following. Number 1, administrative and compliance burden. The agreement comes with reporting, transparency and monitoring requirements that may be resource intensive for Zambia. It may stretch the capacity of regulatory agencies, especially those already underfunded or lacking technical expertise. Number 2, limited direct benefits. As a landlocked country not engaged in marine or high seas fisheries, Zambia may face administrative and compliance costs under the agreement without receiving equivalent trade or resource access benefits. This could contribute to an uneven playing field in global seafood trade, where countries like Zambia risk being disadvantaged despite limited direct involvement in the affected sectors. Number 3, impact on local fishing communities. Inland fishing communities in Zambia often depend on government support, such as fuel subsidies, equipment aid. If these are perceived as subsidies under the agreement, depending on how it is interpreted, Zambia might need to scale back on them, which could negatively impact rural livelihoods. Number 4, disrupted trade. While the agreement's focus is on curbing subsidies that drive overfishing, it could indirectly impact trade for landlocked countries if they are dependent on importing fish products from countries that are reducing their fishing capacity due to the agreement. And number 5, some parts of the agreement, especially regarding harmful subsidies, may be open to interpretation and create legal uncertainties on how Zambia designs support measures for its inland fisheries. In conclusion, Chairperson, although a landlocked country like Zambia may not derive direct benefits from marine fisheries under the agreement, it stands to gain from the broader advantages of sustainable fisheries management, increased transparency, and enhanced trade opportunities. With the added support of technical assistance and capacity building through the agreement's funding mechanism under the WTO, Zambia is well positioned to strengthen its inland fisheries governance. Therefore, in light of the anticipated benefits, it is recommended that Zambia accepts the agreement. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, PS, for an elaborate presentation. It has really given us an insight on the pros and cons of signing this agreement. Honorable members, I think this is our opportunity to diverge the insights of this agreement in the perspective of the Justice Ministry. Any comments? Yeah, Honorable Malambo. PS, you take 3 questions, then you will give you an opportunity to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. PS, I just want to find out from you, looking at our water bodies in the country, 3/4 of them, they are in peripherals of our country or boundaries, and I don't know how much we have surveyed to know if countries that border with us in terms of the water bodies will also ratify, because if we ban fishing the overfished stock, then at the end of the day the other side is not banning, then we are just giving advantage to the other people to fish more on the other side and harvest more fish from the same rivers, and probably end up depleting the little that would have remained. So I want to learn more if countries like Tanzania, Congo, Angola, I don't know, Angola part, or Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe would do the same. Yeah, that's my first question. The other question is that how possible it be if we were to ratify this agreement, looking at the vulnerability of most of the fishermen that we have in the country, predominantly like areas that are purely dependent on fish in the northern circuit of our country. How possible are we going to take care of the lives, and where will that money come from? Thank you.
PS, you may proceed to answer those 2 questions.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I'd like to thank Honorable Malambo for those 2 very important questions. Regarding the issue of whether the ministry is aware of neighboring countries that would have accepted such an agreement, Chair, we would not have that information right now. Suffice it to state that these are some of the issues which, as a member of the WTO, under our different regional bodies, for example for Zambia under SADC, these are some of the issues which we would need to ensure that we are on the same page as fellow SADC members, especially for Zambia, the neighboring countries. But when we look at the benefits that would accrue to member states, it could be that, Chair, like I said, I can't attest to it for certain, but it could be that most of our neighboring countries would equally accept this agreement. So for now, Chair, that's what I would say to that question. And then on the issue of the lives of our fishing communities, this is where, Chair, now as a country we would need to take advantage of the mechanisms under the WTO where support is given, especially to LDCs, Zambia being an LDC. So this is an area which, Chair, we would have to work closely through our mission in Geneva. Of course, the responsible line ministry, in this case the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, would have to thoroughly interrogate all the different aspects of implementation should Zambia ratify such an agreement, and how we would go about ensuring that at the end of the day we are safeguarding the interests of our people. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, PS. Any more questions, honorable members? Honorable Katambo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. In ratifying this agreement, PS, how often does this World Trade Organization engage, especially as developing countries, in capacity building? Because nations need to be aware of these regulations. There's the issue also of conservation of the marine resources. Now, Zambia is a landlocked country, and then you're talking about ocean and seas and these huge water body masses. So how is Zambia also relating itself to these regulations under the World Trade Organization? There's the issue of illegal fishing or overfishing, and then now how does this World Trade Organization come in to curb these illegal fishing or overfishing in unregulated areas within the water bodies of a member state? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable. I want to add also a question, PS. You've indicated in the conclusion that Zambia may not derive benefits from the marine series under this agreement. And this is talking about subsidies. Now, looking at our aquaculture sector in this country, it's not well developed. And it is now that I think efforts are being made to ensure that we have a robust aquaculture sector, where now fish farming through cages has come on board. But then, if this treaty will be looking at situations where Zambia cannot subsidize, and looking at our sector, which is still in its infancy, don't you think this will affect us negatively? Another contribution.
Yeah, just to amplify a certain section of the question from Honorable Katambo. Just wanted to find out from you, looking at the situation currently that is happening in the country in relation to illegal fishing methods, like using mosquito nets and others, and this has contributed immensely on the depletion of the fishing stocks. Now, my question is, will there be a deliberate funding or a system or a measure that is going to be put in place to ensure that our people are completely prohibited from using such methods? Thank you.
PS, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honourable members, for those questions. Honourable Katambo, on your question of how often the WTO engages developing countries or LDCs. Chair, the WTO of course comprises member states, of which Zambia is one. And at the end of the day, as is the case in any international organization, it is the responsibility of each individual member state to ensure that it actively participates in negotiations around the subject matter which is of particular interest to it. And so in this case, Chair, our position would be that Zambia, our mission in Geneva would have to be guided by the responsible line ministry, in this case the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, on the positions that Zambia needs to take. It's important that the ministry follows through on the deliberations that take part in Geneva under the committee that deals with this agreement, in order to ensure that our interests as a country are safeguarded. And also, in doing that, I think a related question on how Zambia regulates itself under the WTO, sir, it's really the issue of the country being well prepared, because every country is ensuring that it's safeguarding its own interests. And so for us as a country, the relevant ministry that is responsible for this sector has to ensure that it's following keenly on the negotiations as they take place in Geneva, and that it gives timely guidance to the mission, because the mission in Geneva can only articulate a position as guided by the relevant institution at home. And so we would of course be working closely, because it's our responsibility as a Ministry of Justice to follow through on whether a line ministry is ready to ratify. But in ensuring that we do that, we have to ensure that as we ratify, we also ensure that our own interests as a country are taken on board in the deliberations to the greatest extent possible, because there are negotiations, and of course you can't always get what you wish, but to the extent to which a country goes well prepared for the negotiations, you would then be advancing and ensuring that what you wish to see on the table, the finer print, is in your interest as a country. And Chair, the question that you raised on the issue of what we put in our conclusion, that Zambia may not derive benefits, we were speaking specifically to the direct benefits of marine fisheries. But in as regards the management of issues around sustainable fisheries management, transparency related to that, that is where, Chair, we feel that we still need to ensure that we participate in the deliberations, because at the end of the day, if we are not at the table, decisions are made on our behalf and we'll be bound by them, because decisions made at the WTO are binding on all member states. And so that is why it is important that we put in what would be to our benefit as a country. We put it out there as on the table. And we do believe, Chair, that the fact that Zambia is a least developed country, and the special and differential treatment that is provided for LDCs under the WTO gives us some kind of room to be able to ensure that we put in place measures that can benefit our people. And on this one, Honorable Malambo, the question that you raised, this is where we would need to take advantage. And once again, the burden lies with the responsible ministry to be able to give that information, so that because it's a limited sized cake, and every LDC wishes to get from that cake something that can be of benefit to the country. So the mission in Geneva would have to be given strict instructions, and would have to be given clear instructions on what programs Zambia would wish to benefit from, whether it's capacity building, whether it's because there are other organizations as well, Chair, through you, Chair, Honorable Member, that would be able to provide some kind of assistance as well, such as UNCTAD. They are the ones who deal with issues of trade and development, and they have special programs for least developed countries. So it's really a case of us putting forward areas where we would wish to get assistance, and then the WTO would be able to look, when it looks at the different mechanisms that are in place for least developed countries, we would then be able to find ourselves benefiting from that accordingly. I submit, Chair.
Any more questions, colleagues? If there are no more questions, PS would like to thank you so much. I think for us as members of parliament, this is an eye-opener. It has given us the insights, even as we receive contributions from other stakeholders. You have put us in the rightful perspective, because by going through this, now we understand what are the benefits, we understand what are the negatives of this particular agreement. So this we have learned a lot, and we want to thank you so much for the elaborate presentation. As we close, PS, I would like to withdraw our immunity, so that whatever you say after this, you are on your own. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the distinguished members for this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Parliament Television. We've just been watching the Committee on Agriculture, Lands and Natural Resources, and they were interacting with the Permanent Secretary. This is Ms. Mwenya Bwalia in the Ministry of Justice, and they were considering on the agreement on Fisheries and Subsidies World Trade Organization. So today they only had one witness, so expect some more witnesses to appear before this committee beginning tomorrow onwards. My name is Paulson Tendovi on behalf of Jason Manda, who is my sign language interpreter. I'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 when this committee reconvenes to consider to interact with more witnesses on the agreement on fisheries subsidies under the World Trade Organization. Keep watching Parliament Television.
Thank you, honorable members.
Ule ulia sitombo chama misi jamu kufa jamu jamu. Jamu tokainda mumuja ndoe tipu kare vya ndoani. Bora kuri batu kutusunge bana nanga bana abose mobilo bali bufeka. Buza ndi mukinda tabonga basonga bora tukare byo. Tuko tuyandane muri mutaganda nanga katereka tujikujihora tagwe umbe ngana kitandoe